Elephant burned alive horror. Outrage in Sri Lanka after thugs set wild elephant on fire, killing the sacred animal. Sri Lanka has been rocked by widespread outrage after a horrific act of cruelty in which a wild elephant was set on fire and burnt alive. An incident that has sparked national and international condemnation. Now let's explore the deep layers of this story here on the AI
The
podcast.
deep dive starts today with a story from Sri Lanka that just triggered this massive national outrage.
Right.
It's about the horrific, really calculated death of a wild elephant.
An animal that's considered sacred there, a national treasure.
Exactly. And that contrast between its cultural status and the sheer violence of how it died is staggering.
It really is. It points to something much deeper, a really fractured relationship between people and wildlife.
So we've gone through a stack of sources detailing this whole shocking incident. It all went down in the Anuradhapura district. And our mission in this deep dive is to really get to the heart of it, to understand the tragedy, sure, but also to kind of place the elephant's sacred status against this grim reality of human-wildlife conflict.
A conflict that's just getting worse and worse.
Okay, so let's unpack this. Let's start with the event itself.
Well, when you look at the reports, it's pretty clear why this one incident became such a lightning rod. This wasn't, a random accident or someone defending themselves. Officials describe the cruelty as deliberate, calculated.
And the location in Anuradhapura, that's significant too, isn't it?
It is. It's known for these incredible ancient temples, but also for huge areas of farmland. It's a perfect tension point for this kind of thing.
And the specifics of what they did, that's what really pushed it over the edge, from just a local crime to a full-blown national scandal.
Absolutely. Wildlife officials confirmed the animal was shot first.
Shot first. So it was already wounded, defenseless.
Seriously wounded. But that's not where it ended.
No.
That's the critical, just shocking detail. After shooting it, the suspects deliberately set the elephant on fire.
The brutality is just hard to get your head around.
I mean, it's unimaginable.
And the sources say footage started circulating almost immediately, which just fanned the flames of the public response.
Yeah, you had actual visual evidence.
You could see this huge, defenseless animal, literally engulfed in flames, rolling on the ground in agony.
Trying to put the fire out. And all this while, it had a severe leg injury from the gunshot.
That visual confirmation of the suffering, it just made it impossible for anyone to look away.
It was a spectacle of agony. And despite vets rushing to the scene to try and treat it,
It was too late.
the combination of the gunshot and the burns was just too severe. The elephant died later.
In the response from law enforcement,
It was swift,
Yeah.
uncompromising.
they didn't hesitate at all.
No. Authorities arrested 3 men aged between 42 and 50 and put them straight on remand.
And the intensity of that response, both legal and public, it's not just about one act of cruelty, is it?
No, not at all.
It leads us directly into this whole other area, the culture and the law surrounding these animals.
And that's what's so crucial to grasp here, the deep reverence for the elephant in Sri Lankan society.
They're not just another protected animal.
Not even close. They are sacred. They have this profound religious significance, especially in Buddhist traditions.
Right, you see them in religious processions.
Exactly. They're symbols of good fortune, of power. They are, without a doubt, a national treasure.
So culturally, an act like this it's like attacking a religious monument or something,
That's a good way to put it.
which raises the question of legal protection. With that kind of cultural weight, what does the law actually say?
Well, the legal protections are robust. At least they are on paper.
Okay.
Killing an elephant is a very serious crime under Sri Lankan law. The law is meant to reflect that cultural importance.
Oh, sense a butt coming.
But here's where we run into what you might call a legal paradox.
A paradox.
The law technically states that poachers can face the death penalty.
The death penalty, that's as serious as it gets.
It's an extreme theoretical punishment, yes.
But the reality is different, right? Because the country hasn't actually carried out an execution in decades.
Precisely. Sri Lanka stopped executions back in 1976.
So any death sentence today,
Is automatically commuted to life in prison for any crime, including elephant poaching.
that is a fascinating legal tension. The law looks incredibly severe to sort of satisfy that public outrage.
Right, to show how grave the crime is.
But the state's modern practice just won't go that far. You have to wonder, does that gap actually embolden some people?
That's the fundamental question being debated right now, especially as this conflict gets worse.
I mean, if the consequence is theoretically death, but practically life in prison. Does that change the risk for a farmer who's desperate to protect their land?
It's definitely a point of frustration for conservationists. But really, no matter how cruel the Anuradhapura case was, the death of this one elephant is a symptom.
Right.
It's a symptom of a much bigger systemic crisis that no legal framework, however tough, can really fix on its own.
And that takes us into the grim statistics. Because this tension between reverence and reality, it isn't abstract at all.
No.
When you look at the raw data in the sources, the scale of this human-elephant conflict is it's hard to comprehend.
The authorities' estimates are staggering.
So despite the sacred status, despite the laws, these clashes are on the rise.
A sharp rise. Over the past 5 years, this escalating conflict has killed approximately 400 elephants.
400 elephants?
And 200 humans.
Yeah.
Every single year.
Wait, 200 humans every year?
Yes.
So that statistic is the whole story, isn't it? If Sri Lanka has, an estimated 7,000 wild elephants total?
Right.
Losing 400 a year is a huge, unsustainable pressure on the population. But you have to remember, the 200 humans lost too. This is genuine two-sided war.
Exactly. It's a tragedy rooted in survival, not just malice. It's driven by resource scarcity and human encroachment.
So when farmers in these remote villages attack elephants...
It's often because the animals have strayed into their farmland and destroyed their crops.
And we're not talking about hobby gardens here.
No, these are subsistence farms.
Yeah.
This is their livelihood. Paddy rice, maize, bananas. When a herd of elephants wipes out a field overnight, they're not just destroying food.
They're destroying an entire year's income.
Their ability to feed their family, to pay off loans, it's immediate economic devastation.
So it becomes a zero-sum game. The farmer's survival versus the survival of this sacred animal.
And when the stakes are that high, the choice can, lean towards protecting your family.
Which leads to these desperate attempts to manage the conflict. People always ask, why not just build fences?
Well, they have. Electric fences are the main solution. But they're only effective if they're perfectly maintained.
Which in remote areas is difficult.
Very difficult. A smart elephant learns how to get around a neglected fence pretty quickly.
Mm-hmm.
And trenches are just too labor-intensive and wash away in the monsoon.
So the state's solutions fail, and the farmer is left to deal with it directly.
Absolutely. And this conflict, it goes way beyond just the farmland. The crisis is about massive habitat degradation.
Driven by development, by infrastructure.
Which pushes the elephants into these conflict zones in the first place.
The sources pointed to another major incident from earlier this year, in February, that shows this perfectly. It was a collision that had nothing to do with crops at all.
The incident near the Minaria Wildlife Sanctuary. A passenger train hit a whole herd of elephants.
A completely different type of tragedy.
But one that exposes a huge failure in planning and ecological protection.
And the casualties in that one event, devastating.
6 elephants were killed, including 4 calves.
4 calves. That just shows how quickly the population can be hit by something like this. Something that's just infrastructural negligence.
The collision was so forceful, the train engine and several cars actually derailed. Thankfully, no passengers were hurt.
But the location is the key here, isn't it? Minaria National Park. It's a major tourist hub.
It is, but more importantly, it's part of a vital, ancient connection point for these animals.
The elephant corridor.
This is where the idea of the elephant corridor becomes so critical for you to understand.
It's not just a random patch of forest.
Not at all. It's an ancestral migration route. It's like their highway, connecting Minaria to other big parks like Kadula and Wasgamua.
And these corridors are lifelines.
They're essential. They let the herds move for food and water and prevent genetic isolation. So when human infrastructure, like a railway line, cuts right across that corridor,
But blocking their biological highway.
you're actively disrupting their survival.
So that train collision wasn't a freak accident.
It was a structural certainty. These collisions are increasing because shrinking habitats are forcing the animals to cross dangerous infrastructure just to survive.
Their natural paths are just gone.
Or they're no longer safe. So they're pushed onto our roads and our railway tracks.
So when we pull this all together, what does it all mean? We started with this single awful act of violence in Anuradhapura. Then we looked at the sacred status of the elephant, the law. And now we've landed on these cold, hard stats. 400 elephant deaths a year.
It perfectly captures the core tension.
You have a species that is revered, that supports a huge tourism economy, that's protected by these severe laws.
And yet, in reality, its population is constantly under threat.
mainly from development and the desperate needs of rural people whose lives are being ruined by the animal's natural behavior.
It's a fundamental crisis of cohabitation.
The warning from conservationists is the real takeaway here, I think. Punishing individuals is important for justice, but it doesn't solve the underlying problem.
Not at all.
Unless there are stronger measures to protect those habitats, those critical corridors, and manage this conflict at a policy level.
These tragedies are just going to keep happening. It's a slow, persistent attrition.
And that leads us to the final provocative thought we want to leave you with. When you consider this entire picture, the sacred status of the elephant, the economic value of tourism it brings in, how can Sri Lankan society possibly find a solution that protects the animal's life and the fundamental economic needs of the people whose survival is being directly threatened by that same sacred animal?
It requires a national commitment that goes way beyond building a few fences. You need innovative models that actually compensate farmers for damage, that integrate elephant movement into development planning from the start. A solution where the national treasure's survival doesn't mean the economic ruin of the rural population. That's the immense challenge.
The same should happen to those cruel people. Okay, in what ways do legal protections and environmental challenges impact elephant conservation efforts? Don't forget to comment on this question. Thanks.